I think, what is it, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern time, probably around that time. It might be an hour earlier, but we're testing this out. And we're going to basically talk about, things that are in the news cycle we find interesting. So, for example, today it's the UFO Congress hearings, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, you there?
You want me to take
Screen
it from
froze.
here?
It looks like you're asleep.
Oh, does it? Yeah.
Yeah, basically talk about like how obsessed you are over this stuff, man. And people on my channel already know I'm involved, or not involved, but like interested in ufology and all that kind of cool stuff. So this is going to be a fun conversation. And guys, in the comments section, throw your questions or comments because we can interact with you guys a lot more.
Yeah. So this is exciting. There was the congressional hearings I believe it was about 9 months ago, 8 or 9 months ago, on what they call now UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, which we used to call UFOs, unidentified flying objects. And it was
Now, real quick, Brian.
Yep.
Real quick, do you think they changed that because it has such a negative stigma that they just wanted to just kind of wipe the UFO thing clean? And when they talk about something new, even though it's the same phenomenon, they call it UAPs. It doesn't have that stigma anymore.
I think that's interesting.
That's why they changed the name?
Maybe it became too what do you call cinematic word, but also I think is they decided, like, probably when you said unidentified flying object, it was flying, but what if it was an aerial phenomenon, light, some type of issue with the sun causing reflection?
Oh,
that's
a good point.
Yeah, so I think they probably tried to broaden
swamp gas, things like that.
Gas, which I never figured that one out. But yeah, the swamp gas. But yeah, it's exciting. There was the 3 guys who came forward. It was Lieutenant Graves, a Major, and I may not say his name right, it was Gush, and Commander Favor, all former military and intelligence, and the other guy was an intelligence officer. So, salute, last man standing is here. Do you want me to get in?
Hey, man, there he is. There he is, Nick. He's going
to he's here.
Be at the front. He's right.
Did you want me to get into what they each said, what each person stated in the congressional hearing?
Yeah, let's cover that, man.
All right, so I'm going to pull this up. These are the 3 individuals. Can you see these? Is it sharing? David, I know you're
I think you have to.
Oh, you know what? I got to go to here. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
All right, there's the Tic Tac. Here they are. So this would be David Grosh. I think that's how you say his name. That is Lieutenant Graves, and this would be Commander Favor. So this gentleman right here was his name's Mr. Graves, and he was a F-15 pilot in the U.S. Navy. He was a lieutenant. And what he says is that one of the things that they experienced was really wild. It was a black object inside of a clear sphere. And he claims that with all of his experience with unidentified UAPs, unidentified flying objects, that all of this stuff was suppressed. And none of it got in front of Congress or any type of outside oversight. He said this object was operating within their airspace. They tracked it on radar, with onboard systems, with their F-18s. They had visual sightings of it. So they had covered all the bases they needed to really make it a qualified encounter. The object itself, they said, would range, because these things would come back. They had run into them multiple times, and they were between 5 to 15 feet in diameter, and they became so frequent that they actually became a part of their pre-flight briefings. And the military made it a part of standard operating procedures, where they encouraged pilots to actually start talking about what they saw. So he's here fighting for an organization he started called Americans for Safe Aerospace.org. And it's to try to get commercial pilots the same protections military pilots have to come forward with their sightings. Then the other guy right here, he was pretty interesting position. He was a senior intelligence officer. This is Mr. Grush or Grosh. It's Grusch. He was a major in the U.S. Air Force, and he was an intelligence officer. So he's seen a lot of stuff, and he had access to a lot of information, but he didn't get as much information as he did when he moved to another intelligence office, where he became a senior tech advisor for unidentified flying objects or UAP issues. And he got access to everything. Much of what he can't talk about in these hearings, some of it he can talk in closed chambers, and then some stuff he is unable to talk about.
Real quick, yep. Brian, how and why do you think he got access to everything? Like, why him?
That's a good question. And that was, I think, kind of brought up, like, you know, how did you end up getting this? He was in some of the questioning, and he just, you know, had impressed, I guess, his seniors enough that they felt that he would be welcome within this very deep inner circle of knowledge that was given to only the most trusted people. And that's kind of what came out with it. So he was promoted to that position.
And now he's got a big mouth, letting everybody know.
Yeah, now he does, because he actually used the whistleblower program to come forward, as all of these guys are protected under the whistleblower program. And he said that basically this organization called the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the AARO, are the people that have the oversight of all this, and they have no congressional oversight. And he's asking the Congress to go in and access all this information, as he says that we deserve to know what he saw. He claims that he has talked to esteemed and credentialed former and current military and intelligence individuals who have stated that they had seen alien bodies, crash craft. Some of the crash craft, he claims, came from archaeological digs. So these things were recovered and been here for millions of years, I guess.
Real quick, Brian, they're very like careful not to say like alien bodies. They'll say non-human biologics, you know.
Yes.
Which is an interesting way to phrase it.
Yes.
You know, one thing I'll mention, like, I'm glad these guys are talking and they got like that whistleblower protection thing, because can you imagine seeing this stuff, knowing about it? Because, you know, just in general, human nature, people like to talk. Like, people like to talk. Can you imagine knowing all this stuff but not even like allowed to speak about it? It must drive you crazy. It's like, I gotta let people know about this crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, I can only imagine the anxiety of working around something so historic. So, I don't know, like one of the biggest mysteries of our human existence, is there something else out there? And you know the answer. You know it, you know, but you can tell nobody.
Crazy, man.
Yeah. So, and then the last thing was this gentleman here is Commander Favor. He was a commander in the U.S. Navy and he commanded an attack squadron called the Black Aces. He was on the U.S. Nimitz. So this is the famous U.S. Nimitz encounter that's been talked about endlessly in different UFO spheres. But he claimed that this object, the Tic Tac, as it's called, these things were showing up regularly, and they would come down from 80,000 feet to 20,000 feet, hang out for a few hours, and then just rapidly ascend back up. And these were those, like I said, a Tic Tac shaped object. He said one of the most incredible things was they would go from a complete standstill and in 1 minute be 60 miles away. And they could actively jam their radar systems. Like they could, our most advanced radar, they could at will jam them. And he said now and then, this technology, everything they were capable of doing, he knows of no technology we have that could mimic this. And this would be the famous Tic Tac. This is what he saw. This was off of his console in his, I believe it was an F-18 Hornet that he was flying.
Let's talk about the Tic Tac real quick, because it's interesting. because that was like in 2004, I think, some of these sightings, so that's even 20 years ago, 2 decades ago. But if you look at like UFO reports, they'll talk about similar objects. They don't call them Tic Tacs. They call them like butane tanks or something from like the 50s or 60s. So this stuff was
Faux
around
fighters too.
half a century, huh?
Faux fighters. So if you go back into
Oh,
World
Foo
War
Fighters.
II,
Yeah, of course.
Foo Fighters, yeah, Foo Fighters.
It's like the same stuff. Like,
mm-hmm.
what? I by the way, I can't even control my computer, so there's a lot of good comments coming in, but I can't like.
Let's
I've
go right to
completely
the
lost
comments
control,
then.
which is frustrating.
So let's throw this up here. Can you confirm whether the pilots had a need for speed?
Oh, that's a Top Gun reference.
Oh, all right.
He's just being funny.
All right, let's
hey, go
see.
comment under that though.
All right, let's go. The surprise.
Yeah, so I pointed out at the beginning of this, what we're going to do is every Wednesday, because we're still going to do our lives on Saturdays with a guest, but it's hard to engage with the audience because we want to interrupt the guest. So this way, it's more of a hangout. Me and Brian always have these fascinating discussions anyway. So we thought, okay, well, let's just go live and talk about this cool ass stuff in the news cycle or something somewhat recent in the news cycle, like the Congress UFO hearing. So we're going to be here like pretty much every Wednesday evening for you guys, just hang out and we'll have fun ass conversations and interact with you guys more. So the Phoenix Lights is insane.
Let's see. The most incredible and undeniable proof of UFOs were the Phoenix Lights incident that many people from different places recorded on VHS camera. Wow. You remember that, David?
Oh, yeah, dude. One that was in the newspapers and stuff. I remember.
Yeah, they said flares. They claimed it could have been flares dropped.
No, it's not flares.
Oh.
Even like the congressman in that city was even, because he kind of had to make a joke about it and say, oh, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. But he came out later and saying, oh, dude, I wish I could have just made a bigger deal about it, but I wasn't really comfortable at that time, because he didn't really take it serious. They had that news conference where they brought out that dude in an alien outfit and say, hey, caught him. Just a big joke about it because, yeah, I don't know, man. I wish they took it more serious back then and did a better investigation, but they just kind of brushed it off,
Well, here you go. Was it Dan? Was that the guy we had lunch with, your friend from high school? What was his name?
Nick,
I'm sorry. I apologize.
He's going to be at the fight. He's going to be at the fight.
That's right. Well, this is for him because he sent you the Book of Enoch, and this is out of the Book of Enoch here.
So
this is where they talk about the angels had come down and laid with the women of man or something like that, and out of that were giants. Giants were born out of this connection between the angels and human women.
Were they just like living amongst us back then, or were they also in hiding? Because Bigfoot is, for the most part, if you believe in him, he's in hiding. He doesn't just like walk amongst us. Same with aliens. Like, were they just like together with people back then, or were they kind of like talked about but just did their own thing secretly?
I think they must have lived amongst men. I don't know. I don't think it goes into too much. I do believe he's talking about, this is the Book of Enoch it's in. And they just said there were giants in the earth in those days. And they just talked about, I don't know if it talks about them slaying them later in the future. I think they talked about slaying the giants. I'm not sure. Maybe this gentleman, Max, can kind of elaborate more on that.
Well, the Book of Enoch, though, that was initially like part of the Bible, right?
And then it was one of the books. Yeah, it was one of the books that was considered a Gnostic, and it was the Council of Nicaea that had it, decided what books would be in what we call the modern Bible, King James Version. And
why do you think they removed that one, though?
I don't know. That's interesting why they removed a lot of those books. That's a whole nother program. That's interesting. I guess it didn't fit what their narrative was or what they felt was provable to be an actual book written by a prophet. I think it could be somebody more educated on that. Let's see here. Here you go. Yeah. He's probably been fed misinformation spread to public and he doesn't even know it. It could be.
Oh, you mean like the dude at the congressional hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Well, these are eyewitnesses. Oh, he's seen that stuff, unless he's
Well, I think
lying.
what he's saying, it could have been fabricated, a psychological operation, and or maybe he was told to say the stuff to make people believe there are UFOs. Who knows? But this is part of the debate too, that this stuff is just part of military psychological operations to make our enemies believe we have UFOs or there's these things, whatever their reasoning is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a whole host of theories. Maybe to make the enemies think that we have these craft and reverse engineer them, right?
Could be because or cover for some craft that we have that do extraordinary things, and we don't want our enemies to know we can do all this stuff. That's another one.
Hmm.
I know they did that in the 50s with Area 51. Apparently, they would try to put out into the public that this was a UFO and not actual craft that we were experimenting with.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. Let's go down more comments. Like, it's just so frustrating that I literally have no control over this computer. So I don't know what the hell's going on.
So let's see here. We got this one here might be that the beings are kind of, let's see, it might be that these beings are kind of from here or a mix. Who knows? Time travelers from hollow earth. I mean, there's even the theories that the Nazis went to Antarctica. Now, Commander Byrd, after the end of World War II, took a whole group of men and ships, and they went there to actually supposedly look for these Nazi bases. And, there's books written about what he encountered, but this is another thing. I mean, there's so many theories, or these are time travelers, or just some other advanced race that lives in the center of the earth.
Speaking of Admiral Byrd, I heard those stories of like he went out there and then there were like these, disc-shaped crafts attacking them and all that. Is there like any footage or recordings of him saying it, or are these just stories that people told about him?
That's very good question. I researched, I can't remember. I read about it a while back, and I don't know that there's anything that he said. I think it was just like hearsay from other people, but I might be wrong. Maybe somebody in the comments can elaborate on that.
Yeah. These could be like interdimensional beings as well, so they could technically be kind of from here and not outer space. It's a really good
time
theory.
travel or dimensional, because they look like us, right? So one of the problems you're going to have is if, for example, we evolved on Mars, we wouldn't look human. We would look something different. Our muscle structures would be because there's more gravity, right?
Mhm.
So why would they look so exactly like us, but actually looks like us, 1,000 years from now, where our heads would be, our brains would be bigger, our bodies wouldn't be needed for, fighting and stuff like that. They look too much like us, like they evolved in this environment, but us, maybe 5,000 years from now that we're more evolved.
Oh, more like probably 100,000 years or a million. So the theory of like if they did come from like a civilization and a planet that got its start, say, a million years before us, and then came out here, like we would technically look like grays 100,000 years from now on this planet. Because like you said, like the way we evolve, we use our brains more, we use our body less. Humans look like a cross between apes and grays. Like we're literally like in the middle of evolution right now. Nobody should think that we're not still constantly evolving. We just don't really see it. It's like geologic time. You don't see it happening, but on the grand scale, it's like when you look back, it's like, oh yeah, that stuff's still going on and constant.
Yep. We
just
still
don't really know
have
it's in our life.
the reptilian brain, and probably
That's
theirs
true.
will be a lot smaller, and they'll be less instinctive and more white matter, more logical, more thoughtful. So here's an interesting comment. You want to read this one, David?
It's hard to say how serious we could take these people because there's a lot of jokers. Maybe this guy's legit. He said, I know for a fact there's way more out there. Complex PTSD for some of the things I've experienced, and I am not a loon. So I like how he has to, make sure to tell us he's not a loon. Maybe he did experience crazy ass stuff. Who knows? Or maybe he is a loon.
Well, and he could look. Remember Tim, when we had him on, Tim Witherspoon, 2-time heavyweight champ of the world, was crying because he experienced what they called the old hag syndrome. He felt he was attacked by a witch when he was a kid, and this was continuous. So there are some complex psychological conditions. Maybe they're paranormal, sleep paralysis. A lot of these things lead into our supernatural beliefs too. So we believe it was, in the old days it was a witch. Nowadays it's alien abductions, or these things really happened and they just interpreted it as witches and spirits back then. So this gentleman may have experienced something extraordinary. Again, this is the paranormal. It's just something outside of science that we know of. Maybe these guys who are in this congressional hearing, maybe they know more than we do. So
yeah, that was crazy. That one episode with Tim, man, he got PTSD from that. Like it all
I
came
did
back,
really.
It's like,
It's like
oh,
this guy.
calm down, Tim. It was crazy. Hey, let's go through some more comments. Oh, here goes Nick. They are angels or demons, not little green men. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this goes into religion. So you take your stance. Are you looking at this from a theological standpoint? Are you looking at it from a scientific, and just if you don't really know, you're in that paranormal world. Is it religion or is it a mix between the two? It's everybody's guess as anybody as good as anybody else's. What about the mall? You know more about that than I do.
What about the Miami Mall? It's crazy because usually I'll always get notifications if there's like alien or UFO related stuff in the news cycle. I didn't hear anything about that. Like somebody had told me that somewhat recently. I'm like, wait, what? There's aliens were at the Miami Mall and they shut the shit down and there was crazy ass video and all that other stuff. Then I looked into it, and of course, like if it did happen, they would have to bury it and say, oh no, it's just some teenagers pranking around, So who knows unless you were there, man. But that was an interesting story that happened earlier this year. And it actually reminded me of a story that was all over the news that happened in Vegas, I think last year, with that green fireball coming out in the sky and it made a loud noise and somebody caught footage on their Ring doorbell. And then they had the eyewitness saying there were like these giants who were like 8 feet tall walking around. And it's very similar story, same type of beings at the Miami Mall. So who knows, man? Like, who knows?
Let's see, Nick, right? Is that who this is? Yeah, they found the bones in the Smithsonian Institute, covered it up.
Well, the question is, how do you know? I mean, he says it so matter-of-factly. So, like, how and why do you think that? And that very well may be true, but
yeah, I mean, there's probably
the Project Bluebeams. Do you know about the Project Bluebeam, Brian? That theory's been around since like the 90s, by the way.
Yeah. Is that the one with the newer Project Blue Book?
No, it's related to like the one world government, in that the government's basically going to stage a fake alien invasion and scare everybody, and they're going to use like holographs, which they could actually probably have the technology to do that now. So you could go with the theory with these congressional hearings. It's like putting the idea in our head. So it's like they're telling us, oh, this stuff's real. Here's all this footage that the aircraft are taking. So now we all believe, okay, this stuff is actually legit. They're taking it serious. So when they do the Project Bluebeam later, we're already under the impression that, hey, there's crazy ass stuff flying around. So when we see these like holograph images taken over, like an alien invasion, we'll just be like, oh no, there they are, right?
Captain Kirk, remember, he did something on that. Remember, I think Star Trek way back, they did one. They had like a hologram or something, and they had this one planet that believed in, that was an alien, but it was actually some other spacecraft that was manipulating. I don't know. Vaguely remember they had a Star Trek one on that. So maybe somebody else that knows what I'm talking about. But here you go. Here's another one. All the paranormal and alien stuff is all connected, possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah, I'll let you read this one.
Lazaro. I am knowledgeable about Enoch and Nephilim. Too much to talk about in a text chat, but when you look at Bigfoot and even werewolves, you will see alien activity there as well. They are all demonic. Okay.
I think too, if I'm right, in the book of Enoch, I don't think this is in the Bible, there were two children were born, and one of them was born with hair all over. And I believe the hair was reddish brown or something. I think it's in the book of Enoch. And that was like one of the births from the, angel having laid with a human woman. And The babies that were produced were two. One was normal and one came out with hair all over, something
Well,
like
that's
that.
a real condition, though. I forget
Yes,
the
it is.
name of it, but like they literally have hair everywhere, you know?
Yeah, the late term is, I think, the werewolf syndrome, but you'll see hair
Sure.
all over their face. Yep.
Yeah.
Nope, that's right. Let's
Hmm.
see. Right. Some of the books you mentioned were removed by the Catholic Church, and that was the Council of Nicaea is the one that removed those.
Hmm.
This guy saw a UFO 6 months ago, David. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Now, I've had people tell me about the UFO sightings and even showed me stuff which was not very impressive. Hopefully, yours was more impressive, man, because some people like to just, hey, yeah, I don't know what that is. It's a UFO, you know, and technically it is an unidentified flying object, but come on, man, you can't just like haphazardly throw that around. Hopefully, it was doing something that defies physics, because I seen something that I felt defied physics. So I count my sighting back in like, oh, it might have been like 2010 as like a legit UFO sighting, you know. But I think some people just haphazardly throw that around thinking they've seen a UFO.
What is Goldilocks zone? Similar atmospheric
Like an
conditions.
Earth-like planet, basically that could
Oh,
sustain life.
yes. Okay. Okay. What do we got? I have seen things that weren't supposed to exist. Actually, it all comes full circle. Okay. He's
I
loving the
still don't know if we
conversation.
should take this guy serious or not. I mean, maybe he keeps going with it. You know, he might have to email me sometime. realvikingsamurai@gmail.com.
Yeah,
Just pick
yeah.
some fun
Anybody
with it,
send
man.
email your experiences. That's a whole nother thing we can talk about. People's experiences.
And
Everybody
whoever
got.
seems like super legit, ideally, if there's any evidence, but super legit, maybe we get you on as a guest. I know we said Wednesdays we're not really going to have guests, but you know we could always make the exception. And it is cool to interact with you guys.
Yeah, we could have
This
somebody
guy,
on for 10 minutes to tell
yeah,
their
sure, sure,
story, and that
sure.
would be the guest appearance.
Boom, yeah, and then we'll dissect it. This guy is Viking Samurai Believer, of course. You know, this actually, I wanted to talk to you about this, man, because you had told me you were a believer and then like you were a skeptic. So I don't know if you're a believer again now, but like what turned you into a skeptic?
Me?
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, I was reading one of the comments. I don't know. That's a very tough. I have a science background, and you know, um, it's the idea of transversing such a long distance. Now, if we just look at it from what we know, I'm not saying obviously there could be some things mind blowing, but the amount of energy it would take to traverse these universes to get here is incredibly be more than the sun. How much energy it would take and at the speed you would have to go. It doesn't mean they haven't found some type of way of, taking space and folding it, so
Oh,
that way if you're
100%.
over here, you fold space and then all of a sudden you've taken, now that's a theories, right? These are all theories, but yeah, it, I play with it in my head all the time. Is it scientifically probable?
There's no way they're traveling from point A to point B. Like there's no way. You know, they've obviously developed the technology where they don't think of travel like we do. Because you're thinking of the confines of like our modern technology that we
Right.
have. Then yeah, if anybody thinks like that, it's 100% impossible. You're not going to get, you're not going to get over here or wherever they're coming from.
And maybe
But
we can't ever change that. See, that's what we don't know. Maybe you can't defy these laws. Maybe you can. Maybe we're so ignorant. We're like looking at an ant. That's what we are compared to these aliens who've been around for a million years, or they're
well,
time travelers.
yeah, just look at 100 years ago how crappy our technology was compared to now. But
Yep.
that's just 100 years. Imagine what we would have in 1,000 or 10,000. Even 10 years from now would be insane. But like 1,000 years, assuming we don't like destroy ourselves, imagine what technology we would have, because it just keeps building off of itself, right?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. If we don't destroy ourselves, we have a habit of using our technology to wipe each other out. So
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. In today, like there's still wars going on now. You think we'd be a little more civilized, but not quite.
Well, here we go. What do we think about Bob Lazar? Man, that's the $1,000,000 question.
We got to get him on here someday.
I would love to have Bob Lazar. I mean, He's an interesting thing. He doesn't have a degree that we know of from MIT. Like nobody remembers him going there, but then he kind of claimed it was for a certificate. Now he is smart. The guy is legitimately smart. Nobody who's ever talked to him who's a scientist would argue that he isn't smart and doesn't know his stuff, but apparently he may have embellished a little bit about his career. But I mean, he said some element, was it 150? What was it? Element, I think 151 or something like, I forget. He did predict it. We did finally, we're able to reproduce it because it's a manufactured element that I think exists for only a few seconds, and we were able to manufacture it. But yeah, I don't know, David, what do you think?
I think he's 100% legit. I've loved his story ever since I first heard it. He's still sticking by it, and part of me just wants to believe, but I legitimately do believe, but there's a part of me that just wants to believe, and it kind of like the Frank Dukes Kumite story. Just like there's part of you that just wants to believe, whether how deep you go in there and how much you actually believe. There's always like that element. It's like, it's such a cool ass story that I just want to believe it. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. Anybody who wants to hear a really interesting UFO story, he's got it. Bob Lazar has. And look, man, he told everybody where Area 51 was. So, it was kind of under very secret. Nobody really knew about it at all. And he's the one who, like, he knew what was going on there because he got people out there and said, hey, man, look at these strange things. They're going to be out at this time. And there they are. So,
yeah.
And, yeah, interesting stuff.
And it's not like he ever, I think he got attention he didn't even really want. He wasn't able to monetize. I don't think he wrote any books and made money off these stories. So if anything, it probably negatively affected his life. I don't think it benefited him in any way.
Yeah, he got raided by the FBI. He got raided by the FBI for his nuclear stuff that I don't know, something like that he was trying to sell. But they had a target on him, it looked like. So Ezekiel,
oh, here's Nick again. Yeah, Ezekiel described the craft. He mentioned the color is amber, but that word amber translates to a high polished metal in Aramaic.
Jesus' tongue, they call it.
Nick's on it, man. Like he got the Bible and the old studies and the ufology all connected, man. He figured it all out.
Fascinating stuff, man.
Hey, Christopher Flynn, dude, I had this guy. So he was one of the opponents of Frank Dukes, talking about, Frank's BS. He's never been in special forces, this, that. Yeah, he was an interesting guest, and then of course, Sheldon Lettich and him hooked up and wanted to talk more about Frank Dukes. But anyway, he said, fake UFOs used as propaganda in order to trick the world into one world government. Welcome to the NWO. So this is that Project Bluebeam that we were kind of talking about earlier. So he's on that theory. Which it could very well be, you never know with this stuff, man. That's what makes it so fascinating. Because if we knew 100%, this is it, and it's like, okay, well, it's kind of boring now if we know 100%. But having these different theories and trying to figure it out, that's what makes it really interesting, man.
I mean, like, do you really want to find the Loch Ness monster does or doesn't exist? Like
I don't really want to find the carcass. I'd rather see some big ass flipper come out of the water and me question. Maybe that was Loch Ness. I don't want to see him wash up on the beach someday, man.
That's right. Don't take our fantasies away, man. He has sleep paralysis. Yeah, I've had a few of those. You ever have those, David, where you try to wake up and you can't move and just kind of?
But that sounds pretty damn scary, man.
Yeah, it's just you're caught between your REM. That's where people think it's that state that people feel like they've been abducted. There is a sensation that there's an energy or an entity around you. This has been very studied. It's called sleep paralysis. And what happens is the body is in the sleep mode. So what the body does when you go into rapid eye movement, when you're dreaming, it freezes the body so you don't act your dreams out, right? You're not running around and punching.
Safety mechanism, sure. Yeah, it's smart.
Right, a safety. But sometimes you wake up and your body's still in that paralysis mode. So you're awake, but now you can't move. And it's very scary.
Well, it's interesting, though, because we talk about the safety mechanism. What about people that sleepwalk? It's almost like their safety mechanism's broken and they're doing the opposite stuff. They should not be walking around in your sleep, man.
Yeah, well, yeah, we shouldn't be walking around. People do, and it's dangerous, right?
Nuts,
What do you
man.
think about this, David? Here you go.
Oh, if we have stuff already, like I 100% think we have crashed UFOs and we reverse engineered them. 100%.
Uh-oh. Logan says we're going to have some stuff going on. He had demonic experiences talking about and looking into this stuff.
Well, I've been involved and interested and looked into this stuff pretty much my whole life, man. Like I was that kid at 10 years old getting the UFO books from the library and try, because we didn't have the internet back then. So it's like I would literally get those books from the library.
Oh, yeah, that's all I had as a kid. We didn't have YouTube. Look at the same old beat down photos, like the same ones in all the books, but the story slightly different. You thought you get a different angle. Bob Lazar's story has stayed the same. He is telling the truth. 115. So I got my numbers mixed up. I
That's the element. Sure. Yeah.
Here you go. You want to read this one?
Oh, here we go. Christopher Flynn again. Don't be surprised when they start finding mysterious artifacts that say all people of the world got religion wrong. It was all misread and misunderstood. It was alien knowledge that was placed here. Okay, and you're saying that these are like false artifacts, I think, right? I think that's where he's going with this because it's just kind of like a ruse, I believe, if you want with like the Project Bluebeam thing.
It was alien knowledge, finding mysterious like that say all people of the world got religion wrong. Stop finding mysterious artifacts. I'm not sure what he's saying.
But the people who are religious, it doesn't matter what they find or present or the science because you're either going to have faith or you're not. You're not going to,
Right.
They found it. Okay, I got it wrong. It's like, no, you're still going to stick with what you believe in through sheer faith.
It's all faith. You either have faith or you don't. Some people have more, some people have none, some people have tremendous amount of faith. Faith is not a quantifiable thing. When you believe in the stuff on a religious realm, that's outside of, that's the highest level of paranormal. It's way outside of science, That's come from fallen angels. I don't know. I spent a bit of time around special ops guys. I've never heard that, but
yeah, that's
now
interesting.
that was a while ago.
Yeah, we'll read the comment. There have been special ops people who have said a lot of the technology the military has came from fallen angels. Like I've never heard a special ops person say that, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays maybe they have more access to how that stuff derived. I mean, typically I would imagine it would be more people from like Skunk Works or something like that, the people who have actually doing the reverse engineering, but
for sure. Oh, and real quick, guys, we could go longer, but today I do got to take off in 5 minutes. I got this meeting to go to, and it's very exciting. And it's been crazy out here. I'm in California, by the way, and there's so much craziness going on, man. One thing that Don told me, and we went out to like some event last week, and the most incredible stuff happened, man, and things that are setting up. But he said, if you stay at home, nothing happens. But if you go out, like, you never know. And the stuff that happened with me and Don, like, honestly, they could make a movie about that stuff. It's crazy, dude.
That's your energy, man. You got that energy, brother. When we go out, there's always weird stuff happening.
It was insane a few weeks ago out in New York, eating sushi with Bay Logan, big Hong Kong film producer, having a blast, yeah, that was great, man. But we always got crazy adventures, together. So, and I'll be back in Philly soon, because I got that fight March 9th in Atlantic City. So not this weekend, but next weekend.
One day I'll be able to talk about the stuff I'm working on. I just can't right now. That'll be
keep that on the DL right now, man.
Yeah, that's something that we'll talk about. So he says, you want to read?
So you're like that guy, like the UFO stuff that can't talk about it, right? You're dying to talk about it, but you're not allowed to.
Well, but yeah,
I know. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it.
Like, I can't.
Keep it secret.
It'll be a long time.
Anyway, let's go over the last couple comments, and I do got to bounce. This is fun though, and we're going to be here every Wednesdays, guys. So, any last couple comments we could go over real quick? Oh, this guy's all over the comments section, man. Secret societies all know about this stuff, and they tie into this in ways you won't believe. Well, you got to expand on that maybe next week, man. This guy, he's quite active here.
you get a lot of this crossing over between people, very religious saying, look, man, they're UFO things, but they're demons, they're aliens, which, it's an interpretation. And you're a very religious person. So, I mean, you can read
Well,
it that way.
the thing is, I'm not religious, man. Like I converted and became a Christian on December 19th of last year. So I'm kind of new to the thing. I'm studying, I'm learning. I've always been spiritual, and Christianity does make sense to me, and I feel a presence there. So it depends how you define religious. Like, do I go to church and I'm all like that? Like, no, but I feel like everybody should have their own personal relationship with God, whether you go to church or not. You should have your own personal relationship. So I have my relationship. So it really depends how you define religious, So I don't necessarily consider myself religious, but maybe some people do. It just depends on how somebody defines it.
Yeah, I mean, they're all valid when you talk about things like this. That again, it's if you believe in aliens, you don't believe. If you believe it's fate, like we don't really have the evidence right here to say, okay, there are aliens. And if you're, religious and you look at it and you say, well, this is just, the devil or something, making a facade for us to follow and confuse us and, made bad things happen. I mean, everything is open up for discussion because we don't have any solid evidence right now.
But the interesting thing is, back in like 2010 or somewhere around that time, maybe 2008, 2010, the Vatican actually said, because they know stuff, by the way, but they said, oh, just the existence of extraterrestrial life does not conflict with anything related to belief in God. So they kind of set that up, so when that stuff does really come out, they're like, hey, you could still be like Catholic and Christian, it's fine. Like we said, aliens are okay. Doesn't change anything. So they're setting that up. They know stuff is going to be like revealed sooner or later officially.
The big one is coming, right? Especially after these hearings, they're allowing the stuff that. Oh, and by the way, the one guy, Grusch, 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 he said that he is in fear of his life. That he does fear some of these agencies in the U.S. government. So that's interesting. He says he's doing this on fear of his life. So wow. And that's somebody who worked deep in the government.
For sure, man. That is interesting. So anyway, guys, I got to bounce. I don't know if you want to hang out with them a little more or not, Brian, or if you're going to bounce too. But this one I got to cut a little short because I got to run.
No, it's already dropping off. The minute they know the Viking samurai is going, we lost 4 people. Nobody wants to see Brian.
Well, anyway, join us next week, guys. We may continue this discussion. We may talk about some crazy stuff might come out in the news cycle. So, but yeah, join us next Wednesday. And join us this Saturday, by the way. We'll have a guest. Haven't announced it yet, but we're going to have somebody cool on.
All right, David. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We will see you on the next one.
Thanks, Brian.
Oh, yeah.